Hello everyone, my name is Camille Leach, and today I'll be talking to you about formative assessment. The definition of formative assessment is to gather evidence in order to provide feedback to students and adjust instructional strategies in order to enhance their achievement. And I feel like the important parts of this definition are to adjust instructional strategies, and enhance achievement. Oftentimes when people think of assessment, they think of a grade, a be-all, end-all kind of definition of what a grade is, and that's not really what a formative assessment is. It's to kind of gather that evidence and that information so that teachers can make adjustments as needed. And it's a very important part of teaching. Honestly, I feel like it's something that teachers have always done, and they've just kind of put a title or a name on it. But it's something that teachers have always done and teachers are doing continually on a daily basis in many different ways. An important part of formative assessment is the fact that it should form instruction and create learning experiences and opportunities for the students. So it's not just a grade, not a quiz grade, a test grade, and that sort of thing. It's something bigger than that and used as an educational practice to enhance the classroom experience for students. It is circular and continuous. It's something that does not stop. It's ongoing continuously. And it's important for students to have that feedback so that they can make adjustments as well as the teacher. It's more of a two-way street. It's not something that is just based on what the teacher is in charge of, what the teacher is doing. And so that's really, really important for students to have that kind of information as well in the assessment. There are two types of formative assessment. The one most people are probably familiar with are kind of your summative-based assessments, your quizzes, your tests, papers, projects, etc. That's what people tend to think of when they think of assessment, particularly parents and things like that. They look at the scores, whether it's your classroom level, your teachers are designing them, your common level with the district or corporation has created, or your large scale, your standards-based tests, final exams, ACTs, SATs, that sort of thing. Primarily what we're going to talk about is the embedded formative assessment, and that's going to be what happens in the day-to-day procedures of a classroom. And that's really, really important because that's the type of assessment that is happening more often. It's every day, every minute, almost every second. Teachers are taking in some sort of assessment of their students, the climate of their classroom, etc., and all of those things are coming together. Teachers have to assess different levels of interest, emotional behavior, etc., things that are their students are showing or displaying towards them. Important are nonverbal behaviors can have an important impact on education. Body language, eye contact, facial expressions. Oftentimes these things are unintentional and uncontrollable, and they're going to give the students away with what they're really thinking or feeling. It can be confirming or repeating, where the verbal and nonverbal communication match or go together. They can contradict each other, when they can also be strengthening or emphasizing. Facial expressions are very important. McMillan talks in the book about the importance of the brows and the forehead, the eyes and the nose, and the lower face as kind of the three regions that teachers should be watching, and I'm sure teachers and people in general are going to do that. Important interpretation of body language as well. You have your emblem language, which 1 and 2 word translation. Things like putting your finger to your lips to tell them to be quiet, that sort of thing. 1 word of caution was kind of cross-cultural, can have different meanings in different cultures and different societies as well. You have your illustrators, which is to increase the clarity or awareness. So the gesture kind of compounds or enhances that meaning of what you're saying. To show something is small, you put your two fingers together and that sort of thing. Effect display shows your emotion using postures and gestures. Your negative can be slumped over, arms crossed, that sort of thing. Positive, sitting up, engaged, and paying attention. Your regulators show either the beginning, the length, or the end of a verbal message. I'm sure many teachers have gone through the experience when you ask a question and you get the looking down, looking away, finding something on the ceiling that's distracting as a negative regulator, and then a positive, raising your hand is the easiest one to see, and leaning forward and being engaged, that they're ready to initiate and start a response to the question. Gestures supplement or add to verbal messages, or can sometimes be the sole meaning of communication as well. They can express learning, they can clarify, contradict, or even sometimes replace. So those are the importance of kind of the body language, important cues and examples. There's also voice-related cues, but Macmillan acknowledges that you need to be careful of those because sometimes those don't necessarily match up. Your verbal cues and your nonverbal cues don't always go together. Another important thing that Macmillan discusses is the chances of being errors, mistakes. If you think about the classroom, usually there's a lot of things going on, a lot of things for a teacher to observe. So that can be difficult for a teacher to keep track of if it's, something that they're just observing. So that can complicate things a little bit. So one suggestion would be maybe to keep daily notes, have a clipboard as they walk around, kind of observing, engaging, and talking to their students can be helpful. Another really important part of this chapter was the characteristic of creating effective questions, and that is very valuable as well. Teachers need to make sure that they are stating their questions clearly, so the intent of the question is understood, so that students are able to know what the purpose of the question is, what's the end goal, what's the learning objective that they're aiming for. If they don't understand why they're doing it, they're less likely to answer, which goes with number 2, matching the questions to the learning targets. Communicating that to your students as well. Trying to make sure that those line up with one another. When asking questions, you want to involve the entire class. Sometimes it's easy for teachers to get stuck into just calling on the students that always want to answer and always want to raise their hands. So you have to find that balance of engaging the entire class with these questions, but not just calling on the same kids all the time, as well as not calling out a student to make them uncomfortable. So if you're giving your students the opportunity to make sure that they have an answer ready to go, sometimes that can be easier. And they also suggest maybe not calling and not having students raise their hands, just anybody can be ready anytime, or you can partner students up, have them pair and share, so they create an answer together, and that makes students feel less isolated as well. Number 4, sufficient time for responses. I find that this is the one I identified personally with the most in my teaching experience. Sometimes I begin rapid firing questions and I don't give them time to even think or figure things out, or to even really analyze the question, because the silence is so awkward and I'm wanting to kind of fill that silence. Give appropriate responses to student answers. You always want your students to feel comfortable answering. Personally, I try to bring things up as far as, hey, you're going in the right direction, or let's take a tangent off of this person's answer and explore that idea further. So definitely being supportive of students and all of their answers. Avoiding closed questions. We don't want yes or no, one-word answers. Adding a why. They can be good for like a warm-up sort of thing as you proceed and build on that question. Using probes to extend is good. Why do you think that was the correct answer? How did you arrive at this conclusion? Encouraging the students to explore their thinking and their and how they came to that conclusion. Avoid tugging, guessing, or leading questions. Don't give them the answers too much. Don't say well and so, and those can almost seem confrontational as well. Avoid asking students what they think they know. Is everyone with me? Most times they'll just say yes, and that's not really a good gauge or a good assessment. And then ask the questions in an appropriate sequence. Make sure they're in the correct order. Otherwise, that can be confusing for them. And then at the end of the chapter, Villain talks about determining the nature of feedback, making sure you're communicating with your students so that they feel comfortable with what they're learning. If you wait, you can't wait too long. And all of these kind of assessments are important to achieving all those learning targets and goals. And that's kind of your end goal. So, thank you.